My name's John Gunnell. I'm a writer and an old car collector. And in 1978, I became a professional writer. I moved out to work for Old Cars Weekly. I moved from New York to Staten Island, New York, to the small town of Iola, Wisconsin. And I learned how to be a country boy after I'd been a city boy for 32 years. And now I'm approaching 64, so I've been a country boy for 32 years. I worked for the publishing company for 30 years. I went all over the country, all over the world, going to different car shows and events. I met car people all over the world. And I decided that when I retired, I was going to open up a shop and try to do some really good restoration work. And what I ended up doing is buying a building. In 2008, I quit my job, and I started doing freelance writing. And in 2010, I bought a building in Manawa, Wisconsin, and we've turned it into a mall of sorts for car collectors. It has a bookstore. It has an art gallery. It has some offices that we'd love to rent to some people. We have an office for me and for my friend Shane. And then we have a back room where we restore cars. So I'll show you some of these things. First, we'll start with our bookstore. Now, about half of the books in here are books that I actually wrote, so it makes it kind of interesting. And then we have old magazines. We have new magazines. Different type of stuff, a little bit of automobilia, and we try to sell this stuff if we can, or get it to the right hands. And the automotive book business is in a kind of a depression right now, because years ago it was a much bigger business. I happen to know, because I was in the inside of the business, that the bookstores are no longer having transportation sections to sell these kind of books. So I figured if I stock up on them, someday I'll have something that other people in the future want. So I'm not that interested in selling them every day. I'm just kind of storing them here until they go up in value. We have an art gallery. We have a kind of showroom here. We have a party going on, so you'll see some of my fellow collectors walking around. But we have a showroom here. I display my toy ambulance collection in this place. I was an EMT for 20 years, so I started collecting toy ambulances. I just thought that if you weren't wealthy and couldn't collect the absolute best of everything, what you could do is collect one thing and get as much of it as you can, and then you had a pretty nice collection, and maybe someday it would have been worth collecting it. So I started collecting ambulances, and I've got about 200 of them now. And when I bought the building, I was able to buy some nice glass display cases, and for the first time in many years, show off the collection.
How many do you have here?
About 75 in here.
I was going to bring my bottle of wine, but I thought, nah.
This particular Packard ambulance here, with the stretcher on top of the roof, is one that I wanted for many years. One of my friends restored Woodies for years, and he had one of those that somebody had given it to him. I was always wanted that, and I went to an antique motorcycle show in Davenport, Iowa last year and saw that and just had to have it, so I bought it. And that kind of, even though my collection is far from complete, that completed it for me. This is what we call our gallery. It's a gift gallery, art gallery type of thing. We did have an artist named Trey Forrester who was exhibiting in here for about a year. And Trey is dealing with some personal issues right now, so he decided to leave. But we have photography, tin signs, toy cars, all kinds of things that people might be interested in adding to their own collections. And when we see a good bargain, we buy it, and then we try to get it to the right person. And this is our shop. And this is an interesting thing. The people that owned this building originally, not originally, but the people who owned it last and did something with it, used to do taxes and accounting in here. And they had a church of their own religion, and they supported their church by doing taxes. So this big back room was their church. And the man's name was Lord. and David Lord, I think, or Dennis Lord. And so he ran the church in here, and it was, I don't know what it's, Pentecostal or something, where they didn't cut their hair and they wore long skirts and things like this. And they had their meetings back here, and he was killed in a car crash involved with his son. I don't think his son was killed, but he got killed. And then the building passed through several hands, and nobody really took care of it or did anything. We were looking for a building to do car stuff, and we decided this was pretty cool because we had offices in the front, and we had a space enough for a small shop in the back. So we bought the building, we put a garage door into what used to be the church, and we made this into a place. And if we can't fix a car, we can pray over it and hope that it works. We built the benches, we put in the shelves. Little by little, we bought a sandblasting cabinet. We bought a compressor to run it off of. We have the black and white checkered floor was something that we added. The lift for the cars. We started small and we grew and grew, and we do have 2 acres here that we can put up other buildings and grow if things take off in the future.
Now, whose cars are you working on? These aren't all your own cars.
No, the frame or chassis in front of you belongs to a 1960 Daimler SP 250. It's a rare car. It's a British car with a fiberglass body and a Hemi V8 engine. It belongs to John Gunnell of Iola, Wisconsin, who works on the car show. He's a full-time employee of the car show. And he had this car in Hawaii, and it was in the Navy. He brought it home on a Navy ship to Iola, drove it around a few times, then put it away for a long period of rest, and now it's being revived and put back together. And Gene is just he's a very talented man. He didn't have time to do it himself. He could do it himself, but he doesn't have the time. So he hired us to do it, but it's a slow-moving job. Gene is not going to pay for everything at once, so we're working with him to budget the project out so that he can afford it. The blue car belongs to a man named Kevin. Kevin was my boss when I worked at the publishing company. His name is Kevin Isaacson. He lives in Clintonville, Wisconsin, and he had this car. He asked me to, I was still working for him, he asked me to find him a collector car. A dealer down in Milwaukee had this car for sale pretty reasonably. So we went down to see him. His name is Colin Comer. This is one of the lower end cars that Colin ever dealt with. So we bought it for Kevin. And every once in a while it comes back in here for service work. It's never been restored or anything like that. But it's quite a nice car. And right now we're having a little trouble with the carburetors, and we think it's because of the new gas. We've had a lot of problems along those lines. So we are trying to make it run sweet for them.
Yeah. So what about this Triumph? Is that what this is on the rack?
That's an Alfa Romeo. That belongs to Shane. Shane is the man who runs his business in the back here.
Okay.
He runs a business called Shane's Classic Sports Cars inside my building. And Shane is working on his own car and has a clutch problem. So it's a matter, you know, the work gets done relatively fast, but getting parts sometimes takes a week or 2. So he's waiting for some parts. 40 years I've been in the writing business. A lot of shops are big name shops. They got 83 people working. They tell you everything, how great they're going to be. And you go back 5 years later and they're gone. And you find out they left their last project sitting in a guy's driveway unfinished. So I've run into a lot of that over the years. So I do anything I can to avoid that. And this is all fun for me. And it's really the writing end of things that keeps me going. Thank you. We bought the floor at SEMA. It's not really the ultimate floor for a shop. Most guys come in here and say, how can you run a shop with that floor? But it's pretty durable stuff. And I have 2 acres. And so as we grow, we have the ability to put up different buildings or expand this. And, you know, I would like to ultimately have Shane doing the British cars, I'd like to have somebody doing the American cars, and I would like to have motorcycles. Because there's not really a good motorcycle shop in this area unless you have a Harley. Up in Rothschild, there's some guys that operate out of an old bank up there, and they do a beautiful job on Harleys. And sometimes they'll touch my old Indians, but they won't do any Japanese bikes. And so there's a big opening there in this area for a good bike shop. There is a bike shop down in Royalton, and they've been arrested so many times, nobody wants to go back there. The main driving force behind Gunner's Great Garage is to start to help people in this economy. I noticed that a lot of people were out of work, a lot of people were getting unemployment, and I wanted to help people start their own businesses that were connected to the old car hobby. And I thought I could do this in this building and help some people come in. Each person that comes in and works here has their own LLC, their own company, and they just pay me a very modest rent, and we make it work that way. So far, Shane is the renter. He's the one person who's done that. But we would like to help other people. For example, somebody could come in and run the art gallery and really, with retail experience, be able to turn that into something that's really going. And I would even start them off with an inventory, but then they would take over from there. Same thing with the bookshop, if we could find somebody who would run the bookshop. We have some ideas along the line of public relations. You know, I worked as an editor and as a writer, and sometimes I've tried to do public relations, but it's a different business, and you can't be a writer and a public relations guy, because in one of them you have to tell the truth, and in the other one you have to make the truth sound good. And so I would love to get a good PR person in here, and I would get them the clients. And that's part of the thing. I go to the SEMA show every year. I go to the Hot Rod and Restoration show every year. I do the travel. So they wouldn't have to do it unless they wanted to. But, you know, my rents here for the whole shop area there, Shane, I charge him $300 a month, you know. And the offices would be along the lines of $200 a month for an office. And then I would give you the contact list, the telephone numbers, the people to call. But you run your own business and work for yourself.
Yeah. And how far are you from the grounds for the largest Midwest auto show?
We're about 15 minutes away from the Iola Old Car Show. Yeah. And there are several businesses or big collections in this area. And another concept we have, and we haven't developed this very much, but that we would like to turn this into a destination for old car people to come to the Iola area, maybe, you know, bust them up or something like that, like they do in some of the antique shops, or some of the villages in Wisconsin are focused on arts and crafts. We'd like to do that for cars. And, you know, if we brought somebody in here and they started their own business and got it going, they might want to branch out and be part of the big picture. And that's fine with me. Yeah. I'm doing this mostly for fun.
Well, and John, your contacts in the car industry range not just in the publishing part, but the folks that are running the car shows,
right,
and the collectors across the country know who you are and have worked with you.
Right, and my contacts are with the manufacturers of the parts. You know, there's I just found out about this myself, but there's an event that SEMA sponsors in California every year, where writers can go to a hotel there and meet face-to-face with the people that are manufacturing the parts and the reproduction parts, and sit down and talk to them and say, what do you need for your projects in the upcoming year that you're going to do in the magazines. And so I'm looking forward to going to that for the first time.
Oh,
and
great.
If somebody was here doing a business, I would be repping them too.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you very much for having us.